we have 5
once
minutes
we
to
get,
build.
we got to get
5
going.
minutes. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. All right, so we're going to start. And, oh, I get it. Is this just for that? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I know it's early, but we do have another program, so we have to kind of move along. We have another program coming in at 11 o'clock. So we got to kind of hustle and get done and let them have their time as well. So how about we begin with a word of prayer together. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for this time that we could have together. Thank you, Lord, for the abundance of food that you provide for us, and that you've also given us a way through science that we can know how to preserve our food, Lord, to make it safe and to have it for times of need. And so, Lord, we just pray for your presence to be with us, guide us, and bless us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so what I'm going to start telling you first is that there's no perfect method. Okay? It's the method that's perfect for you. And so it's all about comfort, I think, your comfort zone. You know, like what you're comfortable doing, what you're comfortable working with, your level of sanitary measures, right? Everybody's got a different level on that. Some of us might be germaphobes, right? And some don't care. You know, it just, and that's, I don't want anyone to feel like there's any judgments being put anywhere. Because if you listen to some people, they're just very stringent and don't want to, you know, go off of anything else but what the USDA says, you know. But I'll just tell you, the USDA mostly tells us to do pressure canners, okay? And that's just because of scientific things. But Europeans to this day don't do pressure canning. They do the hot water baths, okay? And so that's just something to think about. And again, if you hear me say these things, you still don't know what I'm comfortable with, right? And so whatever is said here today has nothing to do with my opinion. It's just I'm giving you all the different things that are out there, and you pick what you're comfortable with. So you could see here, this is going to be our hot water bath. And then this one is a pressure canner. And he has the lid somewhere here.
One lid's here.
Oh, right in front of me. So here's the lid for this one. And you can see that there's a gauge here with a weight as well. And the best thing that I find is whatever canner you get has a book with it, okay? And if you just sit and read the book every time you use it, you're comfortable. That's just what I've always done, whatever canner I'm using. And so this is their canner, and he was just opening it up and showing me this is what we're doing. And these guys can all the time. How many jars do you have in your?
It's 40 per shelf, and I don't know.
40 cans per shelf, and that's how they process 40 at a time. If they know, oh, this shelf's gone, they start processing at that level, you know. And so they're doing it all the time, and yet they still stick to this, right? Because that's just, you have to get in your head, I need to be comfortable what I'm doing and not be afraid and not think, you know. So, for example, it'll tell you exactly for your area, if you want to make tomato sauce or water-packed tomatoes, you know, all these different things, it'll tell you what pressure to have it at, because you got to get the pressure up to a certain level, right? And leave it at that pressure for how long. It'll tell you for how long and how many pounds. This one particular, you switch it. There's different pounds of, it says it right on here. There's a 5, 10, and 15. And it'll tell you which one to put it on. The other canner doesn't have that. It just has a weighted one on it, and you just get up to the pressure, and that's it. Okay. So, but we're going to be using this one, right?
Yep.
So right now what he's doing is they've already, because we have to be in a hurry today, so we're not going to have as much hands-on as we had anticipated. Sorry about that. They already went through the process of boiling some water and throwing the tomatoes into that water for 30 to 60 seconds, right? And once you throw them in there, then you take them out. Once you see a crack in the skin, you take them out and you put them in cold water. And the only reason you're putting them in cold water is so you can handle them, because they're so hot, right? And then you just peel off the peel. It comes right off. And then you core the center. You take the core out. And then however you want to process them. Some people do them whole. These are quartered. And then now what he's going to do is put a little bit of water in it, and then get it on the stove and start boiling them, okay? And he's going to start boiling them down. And then he's already got...
There's water boiling there if somebody wants to see how to blanch them.
Okay, so they left... If no one's ever seen this process, you can come up here. You can come up here right now, and we'll throw them in. Because they did some boiling water here. We'll throw them in. Yeah, if you guys want to come do that. So, the fellows are the ones that are going to come do it. All right, so you see here we've got the water going. Do we need to turn it on again? No, it's on. Maybe turn it up. So all you do is just take this and throw it in. And wait about a minute.
1 minute.
And you just watch them. And you'll start to see the skin split. You'll start to see the skin split. And when you...
No, but since people don't really can the skin, is it like bacteria, or is it not nice to have it in tomato sauce, or what?
It depends on the process. We actually have a sauce that we make that it's skins and all.
Okay.
But in like this, you'll find the skins separate and it'll settle on the bottom of the jar.
Oh, okay.
So it just, when you get it to go make like a sauce or something, you dip it out, it's got rolled up skins.
Okay,
So
so
the skins will peel in the jar.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having it necessarily, except for they're just maybe not as nice.
There's not a nice when you go to
Eat it and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
get stuck in your teeth, on your teeth.
Gotcha.
So you have this going?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got that going. And
Not yet. No.
how are they going?
They're still thinking about it.
About a minute.
It's on the high too, so
Maybe
it's
the water
on the
was-
high.
Oh, it's on high. Okay. All right. So while that's going on, I'm going to grab the computer and just tell you a few things. Have you all heard about levels of acidity? So we're doing the pH scale, right? And the pH scale goes from 0 to 14. And what is water at? 7. The perfect pH, right, is water. Isn't that beautiful? When you think about it, you know, Jesus is the living water, he says. He's just right smack, he's just perfect. You know, he's not too acid, he's not too alkaline, he's just perfect. He's the water of life. And that's what we need to That's what we need to replenish ourselves, right? And but if you go towards the alkaline, the more towards the 14 you go, the more caustic it is. So like lye is the most caustic. Like if you touch it, it could burn you, right? And you look at Clorox is there, you know, in the most alkaline. Our soaps are more alkaline. They're more slippery. So all that alkaline stuff is more slippery. And then when you go towards the acid side, right, you go towards the acid and you have things like vinegar, which is caustic, right? And think about it. These extremes, we use both of them for cleaning things in the house, right? We use vinegar to clean things in the house, and we use Clorox to clean things in the house. So the more far away you get from the center, the more caustic it is, right? And so, you know, vinegar, you've got lemon juice, you've got, so then on the acid side, there's the foods, right, that they range in. And so from 7 and down is the acid. And so right about 4.6 and up, that's considered low acid. So about 4.6 and up is low acid. And then 4.6 and down is high acid. And the high acid foods are the ones that the USDA says that you can do water bath in. Is anyone watching that?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, the guys are taking care of this, right? And Jay is skinning them now. You want to do it in front of the camera?
Not around your laptop.
Not by the laptop.
Not by the laptop.
So,
This is, I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
This is a very easy process. This morning when we prepped all these, we actually got them to the point where we took them out of the hot water and put them in the cool water, which this water here is cool to help so we can handle it. We actually had our kids doing it.
Oh,
So
so
it's
that's cool.
11, 9, and 8. So
That's awesome. So, like I was saying, in the acid side, you know, the 4.6 and lower is your high acid foods. And those are foods that are like fruits, okay? And tomato, which is also a fruit, is the funny one, okay? And I know this is where it's going to get a little like, well, we've always done it like this. But according to the USDA, that tomatoes range from like 4.3 to 4.9. And that's why they say in order, if you want to do water bath for tomatoes, you got to add acid to it, or more acid, something acidic. So what they recommend is adding a little bit of lemon juice to make it more acidic. And so if you make it more acidic, oh, and this is why. I'm sorry, I should have prefaced it with, what are we trying to avoid by having a high acid? What's that? Bacteria growth, and in particular botulism, right? Clostridium, oh yeah, you guys can sit down now. Thank you, sorry. Clostridium botulinum or something, that's how it's said, is a spore. And the spores are everywhere. They're everywhere. It's on our food, it's on the ground, it's everywhere. So our stomachs are a high acid, right? And so if you eat a food with it, your stomach acid will take care of it. It's not a problem. The spore is not a problem. It's the environment you put that spore in that becomes a problem. And what that spore needs is low acid, none to low oxygen, a warm environment, a moist environment, and a protein environment. What does that sound like? A can, right? Low acid, anaerobic, low oxygen, and then low, you understand. I just told you all those things, right? And that's a can. And so what happens to that spore is it goes into the vegetative state, and that vegetative state then turns into botulism. And if you eat that, it's deadly. And it's you get hurt, there's all this neuro stuff that happens to you. So we want to avoid that. And that's why you want to have high acid food, because that's one thing that you just knocked off of. It'll prevent botulism, right? And that's why people worry about acidity when it comes to canning. And so you want to make sure as much as possible that your food is the right acidity. Well, if you grew up with grandma and teaching you how to do these things, you don't worry so much. But what if we didn't grow up doing that? We kind of fear more, right? Because we don't know where to go and what to do. And so we have techniques and things. And so one thing that you could do is buy these little strips of pH strips, thank you, to test the pH, right? And so let's say you make a salsa. Okay, some people make a salsa and then they can it. But how do you know what the pH of that is? Because you just combined a bunch of different foods that bring the pH down. So now you're not really sure where the pH level is, right? But like I said, if you had grandma showing you all this stuff, no problem. You learned it and it's okay. But if you don't have that safety net, how do you start? And you got to start somewhere, and you got to learn this. And then you throw those things away eventually, because you'll know, okay, I know what the pH is. Unless you're a person that always wants to be sure, right? And that's okay. And so you dip that in, and you'll see, and you compare it to the pH. I wish I would have just brought one. Sorry, you guys. And then you compare the color, and you'll see, oh, the acid's just at the right place. It's below 4.6. It's way below, and that way I can do the water bath. Am I making sense? Yeah. You could do the water bath. If it's above that 4.6, and those are usually green beans and regular beans and meats and things like that, that has to be done pressure cooking according to the USDA. Okay, according to the USDA, you have to do pressure canning. But everybody knows of the Italian grandma, right? Everybody talks about, but my Italian grandma didn't do it like that and still doesn't do it like that. And that's where, I'm speaking in a public thing, and so I have to tell you all the different things. I can't just tell you what I think is right. I have to be safe and tell you this is what the USDA recommends, da-da-da-da-da, but there's always those Italian grandmas. And what do? They will do the water bath with, this is just incredible, with tomatoes that are raw. That's cold pack. Okay, raw tomato. I mean, they'll peel them like he did. They'll do all that. They'll peel them, but they'll put it in there, and then they'll put basil in it. They will put raw basil in it, and then fill it up. They'll heat up like the tomato juice, and then pour that in, and then start boiling it inside there, and that's it. That's how they can it. Okay, so I'm just telling you, there's some people who do that with their tomatoes, and they've fared well. But then there's the other side of, what are you comfortable doing? And that's where the USDA has all these standards. And that's where things like this come in handy, right? Ball's Blue Book of Preserving. And didn't you say you were finding out if there's...
GR Smith Hardware carries it. Royal King normally does. I'm not positive if they have them in stock right now.
Did you guys hear all that? Okay. So...
That's the Bible.
Yeah.
When it comes to canning, this is your friend. It gives you recipes for everything. So if you want to make like the salsa, like she was talking about, it tells you how much you can add to the tomato juice before you have to add so much lemon juice. So typically in a salsa, we'll do onions and other things. And when you add a certain amount of poundage to so much poundage of tomatoes, it tells you then how much extra lemon juice you need to add to offset the alkalinity that's in those other items. So,
Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell you. Another thing that the USDA recommends is, so your first set of the tomatoes, what you do is you put in a little bit and you crush them a bit if you don't want to add water. So you crush them a bit and then start to get them into a good boil and then start adding more, and you'll get to that boil faster. But now I wasn't thinking, sorry, and we just kind of started it, and this is going to take a while to get to the boiling point, you know. And so, but that's a good method, right? Where you start off with a little bit, get it into a rolling boil, and smash those up, and then start little by little adding the others, and then that will start just cooking the others down, and you don't even have to crush it anymore. But you want whole ones, right? They're looking for whole, so you don't want to do any crushing and stuff. So this is
like a cold pack.
Yeah, yeah. And what he means by cold pack is that like the Italian, the Italian grandma that just puts it in whole, you know, yeah. So, but this, they want to keep it that way, and so there's all of these different ways, you know, there's sauce, there's whole, and that's why you need to stick to these things, because right here we're just doing this to kind of make you feel more comfortable and like, okay, let's get this going.
Because honestly, the first time that we used those, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Just sit there and start going.
Yeah.
It's like, that sounds like a ticking time bomb, honestly.
Yeah. So, are there any questions up until this point? No questions.
I have a question. Do you have a preference on which one that you use?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. Okay, so my mom didn't grow up, they grew up preserving their food by drying it, okay? Because they grew up in northern Iraq. This is the mountains of northern Iraq, and they lived off the land, and most of their work was done by drying. And so that's pretty much all my mom knew. So come to the U.S., and I grew up in Chicago, so our cans came from the store, and that was it, right? Then as we gradually moved out of the city and started to be in more rural areas, we ended up at Broadview Academy, and that was in a rural area, and so your neighbors are all more country type mentality, and then you're like, oh, I want to try this candy thing, and I always wanted to, and so then I did, and I had nobody to show me anything, and so I literally relied on this, you know, and we went to like, what was it called over there? Some farm and fleet place, and bought a canner and got this and that and just whatever we thought, you know, it was just like totally new to us. And we bought it all, and I had to just sit and study it. And I just studied it and studied it because of fear, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was fearful. And so because that was the beginning for me, that's what I've stuck to. So pressure canning's the thing that I do, but you don't have to, because then later on, my mom starts talking to other ladies who are like, oh, I don't even mess with that for my tomatoes. I do water bath. And we're like, oh, okay. And then so then they tell you how they do their water. Oh, wow, this is so simple. And then there's another one I didn't tell you guys, but there's open kettle. Has anyone tried that one? Open kettle is just pretty much, okay, so you've got your tomatoes and you get them to a rolling boil, okay? And you take your jars and you heat them up. You have them in the oven, right? And then you got everything hot. Everything is hot, completely hot. And then you got to be quick about this. And you just start putting everything in, seal it up, close it up, turn the bottle upside down because you want that cap to get hot. So you turn it upside down for about 5 minutes, and then you turn it back up, and after a while you'll start hearing them bing, 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 bing. You do that?
I always do that with salsa, but I have never tipped it upside down.
Oh, okay. So yeah, see, that's the thing. everybody's got their method, right? And so that's why this is like no judgment zone, because everybody's got their traditions in their homes, right? And the only thing is, I've just seen that people do that upside down for 5 minutes to really heat up the seal, and then put.
As I pull them out with a knife, it's boiling, and I set it right on top
Yeah.
of the jar and tighten it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, go ahead.
My grandpa, because I watched my grandfather do tomato juice. My brother and I actually went and shot a video of him making his tomato juice to save that. It's kind of the thing that was grandpa. But he always had a small kettle, something about this big around on the back burner on the stove, keeping the lids hot.
Yeah.
This right here, go get yourself, if you're going to do hot lids, go get yourself one of these. They're under $10 at Rite Aid.
And you find them at the thrift store real easy too.
And so this maintains the temperature. It turned all the way down, and it keeps it hot. You don't have to worry about it at all. You're not all the time adjusting the burner because it's boiling like crazy or whatever. It's always just piping hot. And this is how we do ours all the time.
So I'm just going to throw something in there right now. The USDA says you don't have to do that anymore. And so they say that you could just have the lid just the way it is. But everything has to be clean. You always clean everything. And then you put a clean one on there, and you're fine. But they also recommend doing this. So that's where you have to know what you're comfortable with. If warming these up is what makes you comfortable, then you do that. So just throwing that out there. Anyway, so I don't know if this is going to get ready in time, huh?
I think it will.
Okay. Then I'll just keep going with the other stuff. So the open kettle. Then once they seal, right? They're done.
I didn't know that it was called open kettle, but that's what I do with my tomatoes as well. But I do always leave them upside down until the next morning, actually.
Okay.
But they've always sealed. Hot jars, you just go with
Yeah.
it. And for applesauce.
Yeah, you just told me this morning. I asked you.
But the applesauce you can do in the oven. So, yeah.
So you're saying we're
Those are the high acid fruits.
right. So that's again, you have to keep in mind this is a high acid. Green beans seem to be one of the things that botulism loves to grow in because they are a low acid food, and so that's the one where you really have to be careful, and that's the one where they tell you to do the pressure canning for, right? But even with that said, the way to take care of botulism, have you ever been to somebody's house who opens a can of their green beans, and what do they do with them? How long do they boil them for? At a high temperature for at least 10 or so minutes. And that should kill the botulism too. Okay? So and you look it up just to make sure how many minutes. Some people say 10, some people 15, 20, it just depends. So you just want to kill it off, and that will help kill it off. And that's the other thing. With your tomatoes even, you usually don't just take something out and eat it raw. You're going to cook that into something. And so usually that helps take care of it too, is the cooking process. You're going to help kill that botulism. Even if it developed in there, you're going to help kill it from becoming toxic to you. You cannot taste the botulism, you cannot smell it, and you cannot see it. So that's why the USDA is so serious about this stuff. You can't smell it, see it, or taste it.
So if you can in the canning pressure cooker, is it still a risk with the botulism?
If you don't seal it properly, yes.
Still can be a risk.
Yes.
But
That's the best way to make sure. Yeah. And that's why I want to be careful not to scare people because, like I said, there's the Italian grandmas that have been doing this for centuries, and things haven't happened to them.
Another thing to take into consideration is with the heirloom seeds, the older seeds, they're a lot higher acid. So your starting point is going to be way more acidic than a lot of the newer varieties, because people find that acid burns their mouth or whatever, the older tomatoes. So we've gone to the low acid, yellows
Yes.
and pinks and stuff like that. Your off colors are not nearly as good as your older heirloom seeds when it comes to having the acid level that is conducive to canning. So
Yeah,
I
thank
don't
you.
grow any yellow tomatoes because of that reasons, because then you have to add lots more acid to
Acid.
it to get it to where it keeps well. So that's why we use
Thank
the
you,
more
yeah.
of the heirloom type seeds, the older seeds, because they have a lot higher acid.
Yeah,
It
that's what I
helps
was
the
going to
whole
ask
process.
you. What's your most acidic tomato that you guys use in the area? Because that is a very good point.
I don't know.
Because you'll test them, and some of them won't even be like the USDA says 4.3 to 4.9. It'll be down to 3, and it just depends on the tomato. So if you learn what tomato is the most acidic, then you're set that way, right?
I've never checked them.
No.
My grandpa did this method right. He did his tomatoes like this, and then he would take them out of here and run them through a colander.
Yeah.
And then that's how he made his tomato juice. But that right there, that's the solution in my mind for this.
Yeah.
Is to make sure you pressure can it correctly.
So do you put any citric acid in your applesauce? No. Okay. Yeah. So that's just because some people do it for color. It preserves the color, But in your green beans, if you're going to do water bath, they say you need to put some kind of acid in them because you want to make sure it's a high acid food instead of a low acid food. But you don't need to if you pressure can. Yeah, everything. The meats, the everything that's low acid. I mean high acid. No. Low acid, high on the. Yeah. I start to get myself confused on that scale. Sorry, I don't mean to confuse you all. Anything that is low acid needs to go into the pressure can, but really anything can go in there. Then you don't have to add acid at all. Yeah.
All this is new to me, but you're saying to add acid, so where would you get that acid?
Oh, okay, sorry. So you would get it from lemon juice.
Oh, okay.
So the USDA does not recommend, I know I'm going to drive you crazy with the USDA. The USDA does not recommend using lemon juice from the lemon. They recommend using it from the lemon juice that is store-bought, which is kind of nasty tasting to me. Doesn't it ruin the flavor of your food a bit? And so, again, what can you do to still get to use a fresh lemon? You check the acidity until you learn, right? You check the acidity with the acid strip, the pH strips. You check it and you're like, oh, okay, this acid, it's like 2.4 or something. The lemon juice will be 2.4 on the scale. Then you add it and it'll bring the acidity even lower. It'll go lower in the acid range, but it'll bring the acidity up. Do you get what I'm saying when I say low on this? Yeah. The number will go lower on the acidity, but the acidity will go up. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much citric or I haven't used that, to tell you the truth, so I don't know. Anyone else can elaborate on that. I don't know. But citric is pretty much the going thing. Or yeah, it isn't what's everything you buy. So the USDA, they recommend either the lemon juice, the store-bought lemon juice, or the citric acid to bring up the acidic level. Does that make sense, brother? Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you always just want to bring it up to that acidic level so that you are preserving your food from getting botulism. Yep. Any other questions on that acidity? No? Okay. So I don't know how ready we'll be with that, but do you have a jar around here?
The jars are all in the oven.
Oh, okay. So they have the jars in the oven at, is it 250 you put it at?
Is it 220 currently?
Or is it 220?
We did 220.
Oh, okay, 220, that's fine. So they have the jars staying warm in the oven at 220. And when everything's ready, this is really taking a while, isn't it? Yeah, it's a lot. So the reason we have so much is you usually do 7 quarts, okay? In these types of canners, you do 7 quarts. And to make 7 quarts of tomatoes, you have to have about 21, 22 pounds of tomatoes, okay? So for every quart, it's like 2 3/4 pounds of tomatoes you need for every quart that you're processing. Does that make sense? So you buy fresh 2 3/4 pounds of tomatoes to every quart. And so if you're going to do 7 quarts, you need about 21, 22. And it also depends on what you're making. And that's why you stick to these things. And like that ball book, and then also the USDA has a guide as well. And it'll tell you exactly how much. And they have it online. The USDA, they have the booklet online where you can just look it up, and it'll tell you, for tomato sauce, this is how many tomatoes you need. For this, they've done all the work. You know, let your tax dollars work for you, right? So use what they did for you, and it's a really good resource, as long as you don't allow them to freak you out and not want to do it at all. But you have to understand, the USDA is also in the industry portion, right? And in industry, the reason a lot of times your canned food is tasteless is because they overdo it. Because they don't want to get sued, right? They don't want to get, I mean, you don't hear so much about botulism in the industry, right? You hear more about home canning. And so in the industry, they like kill the food so that it doesn't taste as good, does it? Can anybody attest to that your own home canned food tastes better? Yeah. Yes. There's just like, it's night and day difference. But still, it doesn't mean we are careless about the process. We need to be careful about how we process these things. And do you have any jars just available without being in there? No? Okay.
We put them all.
Oh, okay. And in the canners, you always have to have this on the bottom. They'll always have this provided. But you put this in the bottom because you never want the jars, the glass jars, to be on direct heat. They have to have this space, or else you will break your jars. And you, when you're releasing pressure and all that kind of stuff, you never want to do extreme change of pressure, because then you'll either break the bottles or you'll lose the seal. So you never want to. You just want to let it naturally lose its pressure. Okay, you naturally just turn it off, let it sit there, and naturally let it just do its thing. You never want to interrupt it, because in that cooling down, it's still pressurizing the food, and it's still cooking it, and that's what you want to do. So the other thing about botulism is you want to get all that air out of it, right? And that's what pressure canning does. Because you won't get high enough for some of these low acid foods. You don't get high enough temperature at a normal atmosphere to get rid of it. Does that make sense? Like, go ahead.
So as you put weight on it, it's like your radiator, 16-pound cap. Instead of the water boiling at 212 degrees, it'll boil at a lot higher temperature. So that becomes the problem. If we put it in just a hot water bath, then you're limited to 212 degrees. That's as hot as your water can get. It just, at that point in time, you lose energy as steam, right? But as soon as we put the weight on it, that weight then increases that boiling point exponentially, so that instead of canning it at 212 degrees, you're now raising the temperature up to 250 or whatever that temperature is.
Between 240 and 260, somewhere in there.
And that's why that one right here has different weights. So this one here has a 5, 10, and a 15 pounds, depending on which orifice you put over the wobble.
And what altitude you live at.
But that controls the pressure. So
So if you live at like 1,000 feet altitude, you do the 5, and it'll tell you in here what altitude you live at and what poundage you need to have that thing at. You do not have to memorize it. Yeah, and that's why it's like, you know how it is. It's like there's certain things that you have to review because you only do them once a year, right? You're not canning all year long, and so you just, for safety reasons, you review it. Maybe over the years you start to get it down, but I don't know. For me, I just feel like I always have to go and review things because I just feel more comfortable. And then things run smoothly. Once you review it, then it just goes, you know?
So for the tomatoes here, what we're doing here, the directions for the American canner, which is what we're going to be using there, it says an average of 3 pounds is needed per quart. Wash tomatoes, dip in boiling water for 30 to 60 seconds or until skins split, then dip in cold water, slip off skins and remove cores, which you've already done. Leave whole or halved, add bottled lemon juice or citric acid to jars, and it has, see the acidification chart, which is in another place in here. Add salt to the quarts, if desired. For hot pack products, add enough water to cover the tomatoes and boil them gently for 5 minutes, which is what we are definitely boiling now. So
Oh, you separated them.
I split them
Smart.
in halves.
Nice.
So they're both actually, we can start the timer on that.
So, like that was saying about the making something more acidic, the USDA, what they recommend to ensure safe acidity in whole, crushed, or juiced tomatoes, add 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice or a half teaspoon of citric acid per quart of tomatoes. So some people will just add it to the bottom of it before they add the tomatoes. So you can just go through, you set them all up quick, put it all in. So it's half teaspoon, 2 tablespoons of the bottled juice, so 2 tablespoons, or a half teaspoon of citric acid. But again, you can test the pH of your lemons if you want to use lemon juice, which tastes better than using, because the bottled ones, you know what also is in there? They just crush the whole thing. So you're getting the peel, the lemon oils in there too. And that's why it's so high in acid, and that's why it didn't taste so good. But we want the juice itself, and so you can test it with the pH strips if you want to know exactly where you're at. Were you going to say something else?
I was just going to go over, so at the bottom of the page here in the book, you can see it's been wet a few times. It actually says, and this is the big difference, the process is hot or raw, and then pints and quarts. So sometimes they split out quarts from pints depending on the process. But our processing time for what we're going to be doing here, we have 3 options. We have a 5, a 10, and a 15 pound weight. If we're using the 5 pound weight, we're going to go for 15 minutes. So, and
Once you reach pressure.
Once you reach pressure, so it's 15 minutes at pressure. Now the interesting thing is because at home I have the American, and then I have 3 of the smaller ones there, and I've done water bath in one and pressure or steam in this big one, and it's the same time. It takes the same amount of time, but this in here is a lot more sure. You know, you're not going to have any issues.
And the reason it takes the same time is because this thing has to get up to pressure, and then it has to release the pressure. So you can't mess with it at that time, and so that's why it takes longer, even though the amount of time you're pressurizing it is lower. And if you want to do pints within these, what you do is you just get another one of these, put it on top of the other ones, right? So you have one on the bottom, put it on top of the other ones, and then you put more pints up here, pint jars, so that you could process 2 at the same time. And that's why it has a different time, and that's why you have to pay attention to that on these it'll say, you know, pints or quarts, and it'll tell you how to process each one. And just back to, I know we're running all over the place. Sorry about that. For, like it was saying, for pints. So that was the first one that I told you about, the acidity. That was for a quart. But for pints, use 1 tablespoon bottled lemon juice or 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid. So that's for the pints. And then it said acid can be added directly to the jars before filling with product. Add sugar to offset acid taste if desired. So it's like, it's one of those things that it's kind of like drug medication. When you start taking them, then you have side effects, right? And then you got to take another one. So it's just like, so to make something more acid, now it tastes like nasty, and you have to put sugar to make it. So maybe old Italian grandmas know what they're doing. I don't know. And mind you, you heard that I like to pressure can. So yeah, I don't know where anything lies. It's between you and how your family likes it. That's the bottom line. All right. Okay, we talked about how much it yields. Oh, I was just going to tell you also, remember we were talking about the 22 pounds for if you're going to do 7 quarts? Just to know, because when you go to buy them sometimes, a bushel weighs 53 pounds and yields 17 to 20 quarts of crushed tomatoes. Okay? So just to know when you're getting a bushel, how much is this going to get me? Because usually that's how they sell them, is by the bushel, right? So a bushel weighs about 53 pounds and yields 17 to 20 quarts of crushed tomatoes, just FYI. One more thing.
Now it's showtime. Now's the scariest part.
So we're ready? We're ready.
It says that they've gone long enough, it says, so.
This one still looks like it needs some, or no?
It's been boiling for the 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But we can start over here.
Okay, so once he got it up to a boil, he did it for 5 minutes. Okay, that's what they recommend in the paperwork, is that once you get it up to that point, you do it for 5 minutes. That's why you heard the little ding ding. He had it going for 5 minutes. And then this is when we remove things that we don't want around when we're processing. So this is where you really have to set things up so that you're ready to keep everything just at the right temperature. Oh, I guess you're going to have to take that. Oh, no, you could do it from here. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
So normally I would not take this off the burner. I'd leave it on the burner. But we got a pretty good boil going, and hopefully this goes fast. So I'm going to set it over here so you guys can see it better. Now we have our lemon juice jars. I'm not sure where.
So should we have anybody that really wants to,
Yeah, does anybody want to help?
that hasn't done it and wants to really have hands-on, to just, hands-on usually just makes you feel so much more comfortable.
Well, you guys coming up, I was saying, you guys could just dip it on now. So, we do 220 degrees because that's just what we do. But as she was saying, sorry.
Yeah, have the volunteers do it.
Come on over here.
Oh, they gotta wash their hands.
So, how much salt did it say we add?
Was
1
it-
teaspoon, so it's going to be a half teaspoon of salt.
And that's if you want it. So this is his
I'm following the recipe for the American canner.
right.
So that's all I'm doing. I'm not giving any secrets away. That'll come
No.
later.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying, it usually says when it comes to salt, it'll say if desired. because some people want to like
Low salt.
not just low salt, but when they start to cook it, they want to then add the salt that they want.
And then.
So. Because as far as preserving, it's not as important.
It does not say.
Okay, we need.
I should look this up.
What are you looking for?
How much lemon juice? You had it over there, didn't you?
Oh, for the pint. Did anyone write it down? It was 1
tablespoon, I think, or 2 tablespoons.
No, that was for the quart. This is for the pints. I think it was just 1 teaspoon, wasn't it?
No, 1 tablespoon for
What?
the pint, because it was 2 for the quart.
Okay, so
Okay,
1
So,
of the lemon juice.
Straight in there?
Yeah.
With the sauce?
or do you want to put the sauce in, the juice in first? Well, the jar's hot. And you just ladle it in. We're gonna leave half-inch headspace.
Yep, ½ inch. Yeah, with the
So-
juice.
I should have my wife up here. So right here's your half-inch step.
You pull the funnel off, and he's checking what a ½ inch is on this bottle.
Right there, so it's the second step up. So yeah, we need some more.
Juice? Tomato?
Sure. Or if you get small chunk, there you go. That's perfect. Put it in
Oh, that was too much.
there. Make this for you.
That looks about right. doesn't
So
it?
these jars are all the same. See this ring right down here? We're gonna shoot for that.
Is that like that's the sneaky trick?
Yeah, yeah.
So once all these jars are the same for us today. So I was just showing Kim that there's a spot on the jar. So if you pay attention to your jar for this one right here, it's this ring right here for our head spacing. So you just pay attention to that. You
So
got that
then
picked out?
you wipe off the top. See how there's always a little bit. There's always a little bit of something on there.
Yeah.
So you just do the top because she wants to get a ring. Oh, one other thing. Do you have a knife of some sort?
What?
Like,
A knife?
yeah, like a butter knife. I do it to get the air bubbles out.
Yeah, or you can use the back.
You the back of that, okay. So all you do is you just go in and stir it at the bottom this one's got a lot of juice, so you don't have to worry. But some of them, when they don't have as much juice, you just do that so that you get rid of the air bubbles. That's just what's recommended. And then, again, wipe it off and then put your ring on there.
They're only charged 12 degrees. Grab this one right here.
Hey Jay, what was that you were,
The blue thing she's holding?
you had
Measure.
you had put some type of device. What were you measuring, or what were you?
I can take it back.
It comes as part of a canning
Okay, I mean,
kit
what does it do?
that you
I
can
mean, what do
buy.
you-
The canning kit comes with this.
So it has here the measurements, so we put it on the jar of the lead.
So,
Tell you how far down. you
we'll
want
wait
it.
until he,
So we're going for half.
Yeah,
inch
it's hot.
inches, you
Nice.
would
Really
can,
tight?
No.
And then you would fill up the bottom.
finger tight.
Well, that's just for filling purposes.
So we'll tell him real quick about the tightness stuff that they can
I'll go
hear
ahead and
it.
put that in the canner if you want to grab
But
it.
did you want to check it to see that it's just the right? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, because we want to keep
Yeah,
the
hold on,
process
yeah.
going.
What's that?
I said, my mother knows how to do that.
Yeah. All right, so we were just saying once you put that, you wipe it, you put the lid on, then you put the ring. When you put the ring, you just do finger tight, not wrist. You don't use your wrist to tighten it. You just do finger tightness because in the canner, and you can go ahead. You want to try it?
This, the tea,
We'll let her try it. in the canner, what's going to happen is if you over tighten it, you're not letting the air escape out of the can, right? You want all that to come out. So if you over tighten it, it won't happen. So you don't want to over tighten it. You want to just do finger tight so that it'll escape out of there, right? And then when you take it out, you leave the ring on there until they seal. Like the next morning, they should be cooled down, sealed, all ready. But you take the ring off. Do not store them with the ring on. Reason being is, let's say you undid the can with the ring, and it was actually not sealed properly, but you thought, well, maybe it's because I undid the ring.
I almost burned myself.
But if you leave it just with the lid and no ring, then you'll see when you take it out to use it if it was sealed or not, and then it'll be difficult to pop it off, right? Sometimes you have to have a knife or something. But let's say you did it with the ring and you're like, oh no, the ring maybe did it. I don't know. Maybe, and you don't know if it's been sitting there open or not, right? So it's best to leave the rings off in the storage after you know it's been sealed for sure, right? After you know it's been sealed, then yeah. All right.
Typically, in my experience, there's a little fluctuation, and that'll tell you whether it's sealed or not. Little popper type thing on the top. But if you were to accidentally twist that too tight, will it explode inside?
It can do
or
that.
Will it just mess up the batch?
Both.
Okay.
It can explode if you have too much pressure in there because you over tightened it. It can do that, or it can not seal it properly. Yeah. So you don't want to over tighten them. You just want to finger tighten them.
You want to go grab another jar?
And then there's this thing, you'll put them in there, and sometimes it siphons. Have you guys had that?
Yes.
Where you'll lose some of the
Peaches are horrible.
yeah, peaches are, and that's why you want to leave that little headspace, you know, because you don't want them to overflow, and then once you open that up, you'll find that it's usually because you had food.
Well, because you already have this all out.
You'll find that it's usually when the food is touching the lid that it'll open it up, and then you just lose more in the siphoning, right? And then you'll open it. But if it's do you know what level? If it's a certain, I forget where it's at, it's still okay. As long as it's sealed, that food will be okay, even though the juice isn't all the way up on the can. It'll be okay for a while.
Claudia, what do you mean by siphoning?
Oh, okay, sorry. So what happens sometimes in the pressure canner? Siphoning is that sometimes in the pressure canner, you'll see she'll have this juice way up to here, right? And then you'll pull it out, and all of a sudden you'll see red juice in your canner, and you're like, oh no, some of the juice got out of the cans. And then you'll come and see, and then the juice will be way down to here. And you're like, so do I throw that out? As long as it's sealed, you know you got a good seal. If it's a certain amount, I mean, if it's way down here, no, forget it. You're going to eat that for dinner that night, right? But if it's just still way up here and you have some dry food up here, you'll be fine. You'll be fine still using it as long as you have a good seal. Is that, yeah. Go ahead. What are you going to, oh, wiping.
So is there a way to check for a good seal, like when it comes out?
Yeah, thank you. So what you do is, like we said, you leave it out, and in the cooling process, it's still sealing. You know, like you've gotten all the stuff out because heat does what? It expands things, right? And then when it's cold, what does it do? it contracts, and that's when it seals.
That's you kind of touch after it's all.
And then you'll hear a ping if you're around, but usually you're not around if you're going to leave it overnight. Oh, thank you. You'll hear a little ping, and you'll know that, oh, okay, it's sealed. But there's a little depression in the middle. There's like a little thing, and once it's sealed, it won't keep popping up and down, right? You've seen it even in your jars that you buy in the, they'll have that pop 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 pop. It's the same thing, and you'll hear it when you open it, and you'll see it'll start going pop 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 pop. So you want. Oops, sorry. So you see when he's carrying it. He's always handling it with this. You don't want to handle it with your hands because everything is super hot, right? And you don't want to accidentally drop something because it's too hot. So as he's stacking them, you see that there's a certain level that you carry it with because you don't want to carry it around the lid because then you're going to mess the seal. Whether that's putting it in or taking it out. Especially when you're taking it out, remember it still hasn't completely sealed yet. And you don't want to move that. So you always want to go below and carry it below. That lip, you never want to carry it up here. Because you could pop it open and then ruin all your work. So you can see this process once you have a bunch of people working together, and that's why historically people did this as a team, right? Because why? It's more fun, but also harvest comes at once. And if you don't have a bunch of hands working together, you may lose that harvest time, right? That sweet spot of like trying to get it all done together. And so it's the best thing to work together. And I think that's what has happened is like a lot of us from the city, when we do country living, we're overwhelmed. We have to do everything ourselves. Just like today, raising children, people are overwhelmed because they're not doing it together. The parents are taking care of the kids on their own. And that's overwhelming. And in the past, everybody did things together. And so country living becomes a little overwhelming for us city dwellers because we don't have community. Chad and I are on the road a lot, so we don't always get to do this, right? But guess what? We stay with people. And a lot of times in the fall, we're doing Bible prophecy meetings. So we get to stay with people a lot longer, and that's harvest time. And it's so fun because people whose ever home we're at will usually get to do some kind of canning or some sort, and we'll get several people together, and everybody's got their station and working together, and it works great, and then everyone takes their portion home. It's so much fun. It's just a better way to go. Oh, thank you. Maybe I should just leave them over here for people so you don't have to wait for me. So why did you use pint jars today? Why did you choose pint?
Because we're gonna send home jars with people. So
how nice is that? You guys are so sweet.
I thought maybe they got to take their own home.
Oh, that's sweet.
So what are
Something
you
else.
wiping with there? Are you?
Oh, okay. So when you pour into the jar, you are getting juice and seeds and stuff on the jar, and so you always want to wipe them with a wet
So
towel.
just paper towel.
A paper towel, and you just
squeeze it with one hand, so you're not gonna
Just a wet
just
water.
wet,
just like
and you wipe it so that you could put the lid
Yeah.
on it, have a good
So
seal.
it's clean.
It's clean, and nothing will get in the way of
Okay.
it sealing properly.
Okay, thank you.
we're done.
Did you talk about why you got your lids over there is there any other purpose other than sanitation for the lids in the hot water?
No, that's it. And that's why I was saying earlier the USDA has eliminated that at this point. If you're doing pressure canning, they say no need. You can put the cold.
That's what I've done. I never did it with.
Yeah.
So
So that's more water bath people will do that, as an extra precaution, and it was what historically people did, but now the USDA says, no, you just have to have them washed and clean in hot soapy water. Clean your jars, and they even say their jars don't even have to be hot anymore. That they just have to be warm. You don't want them cold, but you want them warm, so that the hot liquid going in there is not going to be like crazy. But you can do that and then get them in there. But for water bath, usually you just keep everything warm. Yeah.
That right there. Go ahead, fill it up.
And since we're doing the pressure cooking, it's not a big
Hold
problem.
it over top of the jar so if you drip, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You have to put it in the jar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just one per jar.
Well, I guess everybody's kind of getting a turn. This kind of worked out nice.
Hang it over the top.
Like I said, hands-on really makes you feel comfortable, and you want to do it again, right?
Down. All right, go put your funnel in the jar.
And
Jar.
so,
Funnel.
what's that?
Funnel onto the jar. There you go. All right.
It's hot.
Now we're going to fill up this level right here. Leave the funnel on, leave the funnel on. The funnel will kind of seal it up. What we'll do now, if you overfill the jar, just scoop it back out. It's not a big deal. You're all right. So now we got it. We're just
Some
gonna dip
juice
it
to get out.
Yep. Now go ahead, pull the funnel and set it on the next jar back. And while we'll see now, there's water, tomato juice and stuff that's gone over the top. She's gonna need to clean that up. We're a little bit low. We want to have it up to that lip right here. Not the best method. All right.
I'll wait until he's done.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna do the pressure process for stuff.
So, has anyone pressure canned with the Instant Pot type machines? No? Have you? Yeah, there's now,
Put the rest of that in there.
it's a thing now. Yeah, and then they have specific canners now, Instant Pot Max or something like that. And that actually has like dials where, sorry, real quick.
You're fine.
I'll get new,
Do that job. That's going to be Terz's.
Which one's that?
The cleaning the lid.
The wiping it off?
so, they have these Instant Pot Max where, you could put all your quart jars in, not all of them, but, maybe like 4 of them or something. And then, it has a dial where it'll ask you like the elevation you're at. It'll ask what temperature, because you want to be, when you reach the pressure time, you want to be between 240 and 260, and so it'll ask you where you want that at, and then do you want high pressure or low pressure, and that's the amount of pounds, and it's just incredible that they're able to do this. So people have tested it out. Some people are so against it. Because it is an uncharted territory, right? It's a new thing. And so some people are like old school, and they're like, the pressure canners work, that's it. We're sticking to that, we don't need this. But some people like it because you don't have to sit and watch over your canner. Like we do now. Like, you don't ever want to leave your canner unattended. Once you start that pressure, you want to be there. You want to be around, you're cleaning up, you're getting other stuff ready. You don't leave it alone, go in another room and like chill.
Want to grab 2 more jars.
Because you don't want it to explode, right?
It is a bomb.
Some people do that, but you need to know, in order to do that, you need to know when you reach the pressure you need and for how long. So how are you going to know that? The only way is, so the USDA and stuff, they have these food gadgets where they do this in the industry. They'll have, it's a computerized thing, and it's a thermometer, and it has a computer in it, and you put it in the jar. You put it in the jar, and you can it in there, and then it will you can tell it minute by minute. It'll tell you where you're at, and so you'll know, because sometimes the pressure canner, the Instant Pot, it could be hot in there, but is your food that hot? That's the question. You don't know. And so that thing will tell you, and you have to pop it out, and then the computer will tell you, like, that jar is just for experimenting. It's not going to be sealed, right? So you take that mechanism out, you go test it, and it'll tell you minute by minute where you're at. And then it'll show you, like, when the Instant Pot said it had reached pressure, you can start counting from there, and then you'll see it didn't reach the right temp yet, even though it said it was at the right pressure, because in the food, it has to be at the right temp, not just the atmosphere because the top of the pot is where it's getting its temp, right? It's sensing. So the top, hot air always goes up, right? And so then what it does is, but you watch it, and it'll reach that temp, and that's why you never do quick release, because in that you still have that 20 minutes of 240 to 260, and then you can know that the Instant Pot did its job. So it's like a cool new thing right now, and there's a lot of arguing over it, which comes with new territory, right? I mean, people used to complain about, and still do, about pressure cookers, and they fear them, and they'd rather do the water bath, and I get that, but right now with the way pressure cookers are, it's pretty, I mean, anyone that's used an Instant Pot for regular cooking knows it's like, sorry, maybe we should get a new one, because
Pressure cookers now are built and designed a lot safer than they used to be.
Yes.
The gauges and
And like Instant Pot, it kind of locks itself when you twist it, so
yeah.
you're gonna know that it's locked and you don't have to worry all the time.
And if it needs to release the pressure, it knows how to. It has all the gadgets to release the pressure, so it doesn't build up too much.
So if you are garage sailing and you find a canner there, this is one of the, that's warm. One of the newer safety features is they'll have a rubber plug in here. And this rubber plug is designed so if the pressure gets too high, instead of blowing the whole thing up like a bomb, it pops that rubber plug out. So it'll vent it, because these can become a bomb.
ring. You need a ring on that.
Oh. Good eye. Just
That would be horrible, wouldn't it?
You just have a little leakage.
a little tighter than that, I think.
That?
Let's see. Hand tight is
Okay, so not
or finger tight, sorry.
finger.
Yeah. Not man finger tight.
We would call it snow.
Hey, that's fun, I could do that.
Some more jars up.
So Jay, how do you guys do it at home? Do you do it like this, 2 at a time, and how you're doing it, or do you set up a bunch?
It just really depends. Probably, of course, we may have 2 or 3 there, because Kelly and I work on it together. So I'll be setting it out. She'll be filling them up. And so I'm setting jars out, putting them in the canner, setting them up.
You want to try it again?
All right. So
Oh.
1 scoop of salt, and then 1 tablespoon of the lemon juice.
So sorry, I missed it. Say it again.
So normally I set the jars out.
Uh huh.
In the jar.
In the jars.
In the jar.
In the jars.
We're not paying attention to.
I'm distracted.
Yeah.
My bad.
You said a tablespoon.
That's good.
That's good.
One on each. You guys set it aside. And we'll take one of these, lemon juice, and put in each jar. Yep. In here.
Yeah, especially for demonstrations.
So what really works well is if you have 2 or 3 people who know what they're doing and they're familiar with the process, because one person could be, like in this case here, I would be, or Kelly would be, putting the salt and the lemon juice in the jars and then setting them over, and the other person just ladling them in, wiping the top of the jars off, putting lids, screwing the rings on,
And
and then the other person sets them in the canner so they're ready to go. All right, you gotta take your funnel, put it on one of the 2 jars, and we're gonna fill it up to this ring right here. You need to get that up for you a little bit.
Oh, this is still on. Do you need more?
I think we got enough to do these 2 jars. It's gonna be close.
But how about are we gonna
Fill that up.
fill it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect. All right, move the funnel. All right, do it one more time, man. I tried to do more than I should have.
It's deceiving sometimes. I thought you could get that in there too.
It's like just a little low. All right.
All right, now I get your.
Take the magnet on a stick here, pull the lid off. There you go.
Let that water off of it. There you go. That's good.
It's really not as hot as you think it is. I mean, it is hot.
Oh, it's a suction cup?
It's magnetic.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why it's so hard to deal with because it's magnetic.
I've not seen those before.
They are
That's good.
handy. My grandpa used to fish them out with a spoon, so he'd stick a spoon in there for a fork, finish it up, grab a hold of the side of it.
just hold it
You
like
get
that?
that in the can.
I'm holding it just so that yeah, you could do it.
There was a set that came with all
And then now the ring.
gadgets, yeah.
Rings on it.
Because our set didn't come with
Do it. Hold it.
A couple years ago, we got a
Yeah.
couple sets before COVID.
Yep.
And
Is it good?
they had canning
Yeah.
sets, so it had the jar squeezer, a funnel, the stick there for doing your head space, and it came with the magnetic stick, but it came with 6 jars too, and that's what I got.
Now you can.
magnetic
I
stick.
paid the price of the jars for the canning sets. Other way around. See this here code fit on
Oh,
the
sorry.
jars? You want to grab the load, that lip right there. There you
I
go.
think I gave it to him wrong.
Ring slide it up. There you go, right there. Yep. I'll set it inside the other one. Does anybody want to do? You want to do another one, brother?
I'm good.
You're good.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Come on up. If you want to do it, come on up.
Maybe tears in there.
Oh, I did several already. Thank you.
Oh.
I'm just watching close so I don't forget.
There you go. There's a whole, yeah, there's this pan's about that half full.
We're about halfway through.
This is your time to get comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. So you're gonna get jars. So you're gonna do grabbers. Oh, you get your 2 jars.
You know, you gotta have a system.
So if anybody is not real comfortable with doing this, and you're interested in doing more, I'll take free labor any day.
Yeah.
Right?
We can do it
We
at
will
our
train
house,
you.
Jay. We can do it at our house.
Oh, wait a minute now. Because when we make tomato juice, we actually use those big pans there. So we'll fill that clear full.
So a lot of people, they'll bring their cans together. And if somebody's got a big enough kitchen and a situation where you're just constantly having this go, it works out nice, especially when you do apples. You know, apples take a lot of processing, you know, from...
As far as cutting them up, peeling them, all that.
Yeah, and so that's why people a lot of times will do applesauce together, because because that takes a little more work.
So later on, one of the things we do is tomato sauce. Does anybody here like tomato sauce?
Yeah.
You guys have our lasagna yesterday? That's our homemade sauce.
Nice.
And it does not take long at all to do sauce.
Yeah.
It's one of the
Yeah.
fastest things.
Yeah, because you could just blend it up. Or use the Victoria strainer.
We don't.
No.
We actually run ours through the Vitamix.
Oh, cool.
And see, we take the tomatoes, wash them, make sure they don't have any of the stem on, leave the stem end in the tomato, quarter them up so they go in a Vitamix, whiz them up, and then once we whiz them up, I think it's 13 blenders
Okay.
of the full of the Vitamix,
Yeah.
and then we take one that's got onion, garlic, and all the peppers and stuff in it for the seasonings, blend that up, put it on a stove in a big pot, bring it to a boil, put it in the jars. I mean, it's
Yeah.
That's for
for
Sauce.
sauce. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. A little bit more.
Just this one here. Yeah, that's good.
There you go. That's good.
There's something else that we were talking. When you're processing the tomatoes, and you know you're peeling them and getting the core out, that's the time where you can actually look it over and see if there's anything else that needs to be removed. You want to cut that out. Yeah, and that's where the difference between home and
Commercial.
and commercial, that the reason they gotta kill everything is because they're putting all kinds of stuff into it. And so you gotta make sure you kill that nastiness.
What you got in
Once
there?
you've worked at Heinz, you'll never buy or use ketchup again.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and the way I do it, because I love tomatoes, as I'm cutting the tomato up, if I wouldn't eat it, it's not going in that pan.
Oh, thank you.
Just as a basic thing, you know? Just anything you put in that pan, you want to be able to just pop it in your mouth and go.
Now, did you say you quartered those?
These here are quarter-ish.
Yeah.
The tomatoes were about
Very
that big.
huge.
Okay.
They were pretty good sized tomatoes, so we cut them up in wedges that the thick part of the wedge is about half inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. Come on up, look, you can see them.
That was it? You didn't put anything in it, it's
Just tomatoes.
okay. So you would use that that'd be like a stewed
Yeah,
tomatoes.
yeah.
Yeah, right now all it has is salt and citric,
I didn't know if he had like celery and different things in with it.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Because I'll buy it with celery and.
Yeah, you can and that's why he's saying like they even have it in that, if you look in that ball,
We got one at home.
oh, okay. It'll have all these different recipes
Right.
that
yes.
you'll do different things for. Because you do.
Go
Yep.
This one's still enough room. Oh, I
Stewed tomatoes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now this canner here has
Is it time to go, sir?
this canner here is a double layer, so you can stack 2 on top of each other. So we've already filled the bottom layer. I put down a separator, and we're starting on the second layer.
Can we do 4 tonight? If Josh and I both work out.
Sure. I mean, if you want to go ahead and start putting in,
Yeah, pull 4.
Yeah, you start doing it.
start putting this all in.
How many
This is-
more? Can you see? Oh, that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay,
Oh,
that's fine.
excellent. Jar.
No,
Jar.
we can put more in here. 4.
Jar.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh,
Okay.
you have
What's-
more in
where's-
here?
Oh,
I know
this
that.
measure?
Oh, you do. I couldn't see.
Do we use this measure?
No, use this
Oh, no.
brand.
Oh,
Can you do
oh, 1 tablespoon. Okay, all the way to the top. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
What
here.
time?
the
What time
big
is
one.
it?
The large.
Sorry, I was wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
we should get going.
All right, who's teaching who's leading the blind here?
Okay.
Okay, this doesn't pour.
Okay. No.
Oh, right, you gotta squeeze it, that's the trick.
Yeah,
This
just
is
gently.
fun.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for the help, man.
Oh,
I wouldn't have been
oh,
Like I
able
said, sauce.
to
Here you
bring
go,
all
bro.
this myself.
You can
Sauce
do
is
these
awesome.
other two.
It is.
Yeah.
I
It's a lot
know.
of fun.
So
It
now
is
I'm
fun.
going with this, and I'm going here.
See, already there's a system going.
Yeah.
Humans can't help it. We have to have a system.
Order.
Yeah.
A little bit more. Little bit more. Oh,
That's almost
close.
perfect.
Is it perfect?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's perfect.
How much we got left in there?
Gonna
Wait a
need
minute.
more? You're not gonna need.
Well, we just.
I guess you could do some in
That's
the
right.
other
I
one.
wanted to see if I need, because I did need to dip a little bit of water.
Wow, I'm lucking out here. Here you go, Dennis. So now I need lids. Oh,
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, good. She's on top of it.
Uh,
You
you're
already
wiping?
called that one, didn't you?
you're wiping.
Did you hear him earlier? He's like, I'm not doing the
We gotta
wiping
need more
stuff.
water.
Nervous about those
The waters.
small things.
You
How
got
do you
more.
do that?
He's like, she needs to be the one to wipe.
Oh,
It's good.
shouldn't
Okay,
touch
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's lots of patience.
Okay.
But she said you do.
Well, I do.
Because what she said yesterday when you guys were doing wallpaper, she's like, I'm done.
You can touch that?
And you're like, no, we got this far, we're gonna finish
But you
it.
gotta make sure
And
that
she was
there's
like, no,
no water
I'm
fit.
done. So everybody's got patience in
Oh,
this
yeah, I
area,
did.
right?
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, I did that. Okay, let me get over here. Oh, I'm actually,
It's a little cluttered now.
yeah. Getting sloppy for the sake of speed.
Oh. Ooh. Did you get
You can go ahead and put it in.
like a
Well, it was a huge tomato, so it was.
second
Is
degree?
that close?
Yeah, I
It,
figured.
you have a little bit more.
Whoa, whoa.
That's it.
Yeah, 'cause you can't,
That's it?
like, how can you get that off
Yeah,
there
this one.
quick? Yeah.
Other way.
Other way.
It's curved.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Once you do it a time or two, you're like, all right. I mean, it's just the thing. You know, once you use it, you know how the tool works.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more.
A little bit of juice.
That's a
Oh.
little bit too much.
Too much.
That's good.
So do we use this?
Yep. I use the tablespoon, just dig out some
Just
stuff
take
back
it
in.
out.
I don't remember.
Is that good?
As many as you can fit.
Okay. And then we wipe it, then we do lids. Here,
Is
Danny.
that good? I'm gonna get that one and just a little bit more out.
It'd be fine.
Is that one or two? That's
Yeah,
two.
it's two. See, it's
Shake it off.
So how do you?
I like
in
those
there.
things.
Oh, there we go.
That's right.
There you go.
There you go, bro. Yep. Oh, you use the. Okay.
Try one right here and this one right here. But the other canner's just about ready to go.
Did we wipe the edges?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, we did. Now rings. Oh, where are the rings? Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Rings here. Just finger tight.
So, one other thing about lids.
23.
You did.
I know in the past we would reuse them, but now they say not to reuse them.
Where do you want these?
One
That
in
you
here,
use,
one in over there.
not the rings. The rings you can use over and over, but the lids, you can't use those over and over is what they say. So sometimes you could repurpose those for everyday use. You know, like say you have something you want to just put in there that doesn't have to be pressurized. Some people, what they do, have you guys seen the, you know, the sealers where you seal the food? Now they have, yeah. So the dry seal, like the ones that seal your cans. It's such a cool. I don't have one, but I have a friend that has one. It is cool. So it. Okay, so you've seen how people seal things in bags, and it pulls out the air, so it vacuum packs it, and it also seals it with a heating element, right? But next to it, it has this thing where now the new ones, the old ones, they have a attachment you can take and then put it on the top of the can, and it'll seal it for you. It'll take all the air out. Let's say you dried some apples. You dried some apples and you put it in there, and you put the top, and you just put it on that sealer, and it's a loud noise. It's like that, and it's taking all the air out, and it's completely sealing it for you. So let's say you have some. It's so handy. It'll keep your food really well even as you're using it. Let's say you need a little bit of herb, and it's a big thing of herbs. You go get what you need, and then go reseal it. It's so handy. To me, it's revolutionary. Even your, let's say you get a big bag from Country Life of certain herbs, you reseal that bag. You take out what you need and you reseal that bag, and it's just. I don't have one personally, but if I was home more and doing all that, I would definitely buy one. It's just. It does both. It does both. Yeah.
Ideally, they want you to buy the food saver bag.
Yeah, but you can do any bags. Yeah.
It just heats up the plastic.
Yeah. But I think it was so cool for the jars. I was like, this is so nice. Like every time you use something, you just go reseal it, and it stays fresh for you. You know? So it's very nice.
It's the right level, right?
Is that the
Yeah.
right one? Okay.
But does it matter if you have the chunks sticking up on the top?
I just poked it in a little.
No, it's fine. Yep.
Awesome.
And then the other cool thing is, and we don't have this either. This is super expensive. Freeze drying. Freeze drying is like the newest, coolest thing. And I mean, it's been around for a long time, but I mean in terms of home versions. Usually it's been industrial type stuff, but the home versions are becoming a little more affordable for some people. We wouldn't be able to afford, but it is cool. It's like you just put it in there, come back, and there you have freeze-dried food. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and you see it's too much, so you can take like a little bit out. I wouldn't
What's
take that out, just
everything?
water.
Yeah, anything. Literally anything. You can like.
Oh, you want to do that? Thanks, man.
Because you remove the water. All you're doing is removing the water, and so then it really becomes like super flavorful.
The rhubarb is not good freeze-dried though.
I've never tried that. Is it like 48 hours or no? It depends on the food, I think.
It depends on the food, and it depends on whether you pre-freeze it first.
Oh.
So
Okay.
if you take like you're gonna do peppers or bananas or whatever, if you go ahead and slice them up in slices and put them on a sheet so they're spread out and pop them in your freezer, I think it's about 18 hours or so.
Oh, okay.
If you've been freeze-dried or frozen.
Josh, did those get wiped?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you did.
Did we do that?
I didn't realize you were so fast.
I think we did. Yeah. Pretty sure we did.
I'm trying to think what other.
Two more glasses if we have space. Are we all out?
We got maybe one. Yeah, maybe one.
Yeah.
Did she wipe that one already?
Yeah.
Yeah, she liked it.
I like that. Yeah. It's so fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Kirsten.
Push that down. Take a tablespoon and push it down a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
It'll be fine. This line here is technically a hair under the half inch, but it just makes it really easy.
Oh, I see.
So it's really right there.
Okay.
So we're still under it, but it's super easy then to have a reference point.
Oh, so we need salt.
Yeah, I think we can get one more.
Anything else we need to share? Yeah.
I don't know.
Last one.
Oh, I guess where you store them. We could talk about that. Yeah.
I just put mine in a cool dry place.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
Knock it out.
Mostly dark.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna move more. We dump it?
Got it just right.
We dump it
Just
in.
right.
Yeah,
We
we're
timed
gonna
it
have
good.
Yeah.
This right here, and then, cause Dennis was telling me about the, and you
Hey.
can some type of pot, what do you call it, Instapot? And you can use Instapot to do this, or it's best to use
There's
it,
There's new ones that are specifically for canning.
Instapot.
Yes. There's the specific. Like if you use the regular one, you're gonna have to really know what you're doing because you don't know. This is telling us what the pressure is at. You know, and we know where the pounds. You know, we know. And so we have feedback. That it's not gonna tell you.
But the ones that are,
The new ones will. The new ones.
I think
I was
that's just
explaining. The new ones have like it'll tell you how many pounds you want, how long, what temperature. It'll tell you all of that, and you can just tell it what to do. But the old ones, you'd have to do like mathematical equations and everything, and
I have to get Frank on that one.
Yeah. There you go.
So,
That's all,
but
right?
would you, between the two, even the one that's designed, the Instapot designed for, would this be the one you would,
I can't answer it because I haven't personally used the Instant Pot ones, but I'd love to. I think it's like the new thing, you know what I mean? Like
Small batch stuff.
for small batch, yeah, you're right. So because they're not big enough yet, like look how many we put in here.
yeah, I think I'm rather
10
get
per level or something like that.
Yeah.
10 per
So
level.
so you can't beat something like this. You know.
I just,
Yeah.
where did you get yours at?
You have to ask him where. This is all his. Mine is in the car.
Was that roll
Roll King.
This guy doesn't
Okay.
have a weight.
$550 like the weight ones.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you want to
So that
spend
is
that
the
much,
weight.
you can get them at Raymond's or on the store that are down the road.
Oh.
This in here,
Grain.
Yeah.
They have one too. They have
I'm gonna watch the pressure
So
on this one.
they have them
My
at
pressure gauge. This is actually the first time I've used this one for pressure
Did
gauge.
you
I usually
start?
use the small one.
Oh, let's tell people about it.
It's coming up. We're about 4 pounds now.
You already tightened it?
Yeah. The lid's already
I
on.
like turn my back and this guy like
Yeah.
does like 10 things.
Well, our clock keeps moving.
No, I know, but it's just amazing. It's like he's like the
This is
kitchen
controlling my
genie or
temperature,
something.
So I open that up. I'm at 4 pounds right now. When I get to 5, I'm gonna turn the temperature down.
So you want to tell everybody what you're doing?
So, thank you, Chris. So, you're all right. We had a bunch of people up here with questions, but what we've done is we've gone ahead and put the lid on here, and I can hear the feedback from the speakers.
Sorry.
So, I put the lid on, and because we were already had the water boiling, our pressure's coming up pretty quick. We're at about 4 pounds, and it's climbing. If you could listen, it's starting to, and it just stops. I bumped it, but yeah, you're starting to get a sizzle here. And once this gets up to, I'm gonna say another half a pound or so, this is gonna start to go just a little bit. Well, this here goes.
Oh yeah, these ones.
So,
do that, yes.
yeah.
It's the ones over there that will make the sound.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. 'Cause you don't have to be standing right here to know that you're okay. So
Yeah,
we got
there's-
both
there's
these
smoke
under
coming
pressure
out.
now. Yeah, you can see, if you were to come up here, you can see this here's blowing some steam out of here. Now, if I overfilled this with water, we're gonna get a little bit of water come out of here and you'll see it run down the side of it. If anybody wants to come up and look, you're more than welcome to come up and take a look at it.
What are you doing over there?
Same thing, this in here is,
How many did you put in there?
I think it was only about 5
Oh, okay.
or something like that. I've not had this leak like that before.
Maybe your
So.
seal.
Yeah, maybe the seal's
Your
not as good as
rubber
it should be. Like I said, I use this in here for water bath primarily. I use the big one for the pressure cooking.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Which the biggest thing we do is applesauce and tomatoes.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of green beans. Green beans go in here.
So this is temperature?
No, this is pressure.
Pressure.
That's
So
pressure.
what
It's
do you
just
want it up
just
to?
pressure. Well, it depends.
Yeah.
So we got 5-pound weight.
Yeah.
We're looking for 5 pounds here, and that's by the chart. Once it reaches 5 pounds here, we'll start a timer for 15
so
minutes.
5 is the under, like the number down. Oh, yeah. 228 up.
I guess that could be the 228 degrees.
So,
Yeah. So the book will tell
we're
you.
going by which one? I can't remember.
This one right here.
This one right here. So this is whole or half.
Yeah.
And what it's telling you is like if you're doing it hot or raw, in pints or quarts, you process it for 10, 15, or 1 minutes. If you have 5, so we have 5 pound, we're going to process it for 15 minutes.
And we're
But
at 1,000 foot or
we're
under.
1,000 foot. But if you're above, you're going to use the 10 pound.
Yeah.
You'll
in order to
switch it
raise
to
the
the 10
temperature,
pound.
the
Come with
pressure.
all those with yours?
What's that?
When you
Yeah,
buy it?
yeah.
You
This
rotate
is-
10s here, 15s
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
You just pick it up and rotate it.
Okay.
It's quite an interesting setup.
Yeah, like whoever made it up.
It's still mechanical, but
It's by the orifice
Yeah,
size and
yeah.
look at it.
it's so neat. But you always have to follow these. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Unless you're doing it every day, you're probably going to forget every year.
Yeah.
Well, that's why that looks so tore up.
Yeah. Yeah. You wish they had a version
Laminated?
that was more
Laminated?
Yeah. Just trying to think.
So what about the smaller size?
It's the same. We're looking for 5 pounds. So
Yeah, this one doesn't. It's
Let's see
just
here.
what do you call it?
the bobber.
The bobber is just a certain weight and that's it. And you totally have to go off of pressure for your elevation
And changing the temperature.
instead of this changing for your this one your elevation, you change it by pounds.
So the weight is the control in that.
That yeah.
Yes.
It'll tell you what elevation for that. But these ones you just totally have to go by how many pounds and what time for elevation.
So you're
sorry?
changing the temperature that
Yeah.
adjusts for that?
Yes. So for this one right here, we're still coming up. It has stopped at about 4.5 pounds. So it's still heating up. There's a lot of cold or cooler mass in here. So it's still in the process of warming up. The advantage of this right here is that this will vent a little bit. So that's when you know, see, it's not quite enough because it vents off a little bit of steam, so we're not quite up to temperature. So it vented a little bit, and now it stopped. So if I had a bigger burner, I'd turn the heat up until I get this up to the 5 pounds and that bobbing good, and then you turn your temperature down so
Once
that you're
you
not,
get-
yeah, because you can overcome this. Yeah, see,
Keep it at that temperature.
Yeah.
You don't want it to go.
correct.
you
We
don't
don't
want
want
it
to
to
keep
go
it.
higher.
We want to keep it at 5 pounds.
What pounds
getting
did
close.
it tell you to do it at?
We could select, but at 5 pounds, it's going to be 15 minutes.
At
15 minutes.
the 5 pounds.
At 5
of it?
pounds,
Okay.
yeah.
okay.
And we're getting close. You saw the bobbler just went for a little bit and
Yeah.
then it stopped.
Yeah.
So it's coming up. And on this gauge right here, it actually says that at 5 pounds, the internal contents is at 228 degrees. So that's the boiling point of water under 5 pounds pressure. And 10 pounds is 240 and 15 is 250 degrees. So it's way over the normal 212.
So in your home, if you have a glass top, you're better off buying something like this and putting it in the garage and processing in the garage, because these are so heavy. Everything's so, like, you don't want to scratch or break your glass top. And it takes forever, and it's just harder to get it. So you're better off buying something like this that has propane that you could do in the garage and process in the garage instead of working on your glass top.
Now, at home, when we water bath something, we actually water bath on our glass top. But anytime we start pressure canning,
pressure canning,
then we take it to our propane stove.
Yeah.
For that very reason.
And then there's those big, nice. You don't have to buy one of these, actually.
Cook stove.
You've seen either the cook stoves or the really nice industrial ones that, like, for outside kitchens. Have you seen them where they're really nice? No, they're not quite countertop, but I'd have to show you a picture. But they're just sturdy, like the next level up from camper stoves.
They make outside for like hunting camps using
Yeah,
it's a two burner stove, takes a 20-pound propane tank,
Yeah.
and they're big.
Yeah.
And I know a couple guys at work that actually use those to do it.
Yeah, so that's nice, because if you don't want to make a mess in your kitchen and it gets too hot in the kitchen, a lot of people will do that. Take it outside or whatever.
Basements are a good place to do this.
Yeah. But he's right. When you're doing water bath, it's not as intense, and so you can just do that on your glass stove.
And which you guys may or may not be here when we take them out, we use a bath towel, because I don't care what your counter is, laminate or whatever, you're going to be pulling a lot of heat quick out of the jars. So we always lay down a bath towel, double layered.
Because this will be too cold.
It'll crack a jar.
It'll crack a jar.
So
be too cold.
Lay a towel down, so we'll just take them out once it's come off pressure, and we'll just set them out on this towel. So.
Do you turn them over still?
No. Because they've been, instead of going at a 212 degrees or less, we're actually at 228 degrees. So it's going that one step further. I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to, you could, but there's not going to be really any benefit to it. I think we may have 1 or 2 jars a year that don't make it. And sometimes it's your jar. So if you have a lid that doesn't seal, always run your finger around the top of that jar and see if it's got a nick or a ding or some kind of damage on that top surface. Because if the top surface of that jar is damaged, your lid's not going to seal on it. And so you're just going to continue every year to put stuff in that jar, can it, and then dump it out. So
then you just repurpose that jar to put flowers in.
And yeah. And something else, for those of you does anybody in here use Vegenaise? It's an awesome product. I love the taste of it, but here's one other thing. A few years ago, Kim's got it. A few years ago, we bought some jars from an Amish store up this way, and it's the same jar. So now as we use Vegenaise, we just run them through the dishwasher, clean it out good, peel the label and everything, and that's what we use.
You mean it's the same canning type jar?
It's the same type canning jar.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you look at the jar. If I were to set I think it's Arkansas Glass Company jar, and set a Vegenaise jar beside it, other than the label on the bottom, you would not be able to tell the difference. So we've been using those now for 5 or 6 years, and they, like I said, they work fine. And like I said, you may spend what, $5 on a thing of Vegenaise, or $10, whatever it is now. I don't do that shit. But eight.
Oh wow.
So, but you get the jar. You keep the jar, and you can use that jar year after year after year after year. So this can right here is at almost 2.5 pounds, and this in here, as you can tell, is almost to the 5 pounds. It's almost constant now.
This thing's hardcore.
Yeah.
So you can do the quartz doubled on this too,
yes.
right? Yeah.
This in here will do 2 layers of quartz.
That's so nice.
So.
Because normally the pressure canners are this size, and you can only do one.
Now,
this is nice.
If you're going to buy one, they make this in a 16 and a 23 quart. You're going to want to get the 23 quart, especially if you're doing water bathing. The 23 quart is just about an inch higher, and what happens is when you put your quartz in, you'll fill this up to in here somewhere with water, And when you're doing the water bath, it's actually got to flood the jar. The lid and all are underwater. And so your first batch, you'll adjust your water and get your temperature up to water up to temperature. You put your quart jars in. If you have too much water, it'll spill over. But the second batch of jars you put in, you may not have enough water. So then you have to add just a little bit more. But if you have the 23, the amount of water that you can have in here can be greater, and it gives you more of an operating zone to do. I have 2 16s and 1 23, and I will grab the 23 long before I'll grab the 16s, just for that reason, is because of that extra inch that I don't have. So I have an inch of operating zone.
Yeah.
So rather than have to add water every batch, it may be every 3 batches, I'll have to add more water to the canner. So if you're going to get one, get a 23.
Yeah,
Yes, you lose time. So you got to. If I add water to this, I have to wait then. But with the tea kettle, what I do is I keep it full of water. So if I need water, just a little bit, I can take from it, unplug it, and dump that water in, and it's already close. But it still takes a few minutes to get the water going again.
Can you just say the difference between how much water you use for pressure canning and how much you use for like
The
how
water
much
bath?
water bath.
I use about the same for both times because we flood the lids over the jars, whether
Even
we're
in
water
the-
bathing or canning.
No, I mean for pressure canning.
Oh,
you're just-
for this?
Yeah.
For this, because this here is actually a steam, because the top ones
Right.
don't get flooded. This in here, I think it uses an inch and a half or so of water. So it's not
So-
clear full of water. So we're actually steam cooking
Right.
in this canner here.
And then the water bath, you always have to have it above the cans. So for pressure canning, you're only putting enough water, just like you would steam your vegetables. You don't have them flooded in water. You're just steaming them. This is the same concept.
Process.
You're just steaming these, so you only put enough water at the bottom to steam them. But the water bath, which that's not water bath. He's actually pressurizing over there, but we keep pointing to it like it's water bath, but it's not. It's when there's no pressure involved. You're strictly just like cooking it. And so you have to flood that can above with water the whole way through, and you're just heating it. But again, you're only getting 212 degrees Fahrenheit with that, and so you're not going to pressurize anything. You're not going to,
So on this in here, I actually, in the process of talking, we actually got up to 6 pounds. So what I did is I turned the burner all the way down, and we're just going to let it go. But you see this in here, it's not bobbing, or it's not doing anything. It's just a fixed weight. So if it exceeds the capacity, then it could vent. Whereas this in here, it's right about there. It's maintaining temperature.
But when you turn it down like that, you got to watch it because you don't want it dropping, because then you have to start over again. If you drop below the pressure,
You got to maintain that 5 pounds.
you have to maintain it for that certain amount of time. And if you say, oh, I'm going to turn it way down, and then you step away, and then you come back, and you're like,
At
oh,
3
snap,
pounds.
it went down to 3 pounds. Game over. You got to start over again to get it up to that pressure, and then start counting again
Okay. I am going to start a timer now.
for that one.
Yeah, it's what, 15 minutes? They're both up to 5 pounds now.
Oh, okay. So they're both up to 5 pounds. Yay! Did you see how long
So-
that took?
It took a good long while. That's why this in here come up to pressure a lot faster than this one here did, but this has got a lot more, twice as much in it. So any more questions? Anybody want to come up and take a look at them?
I'll share something, just a little history. Canning was discovered because Napoleon was looking for oh yeah, we got a audio, sorry.
You want to just come up here?
I'll hand him this one then.
Then you can
use this one
hand
here.
this one.
This one's a lot better microphone.
That's better. This is just some history that non-essential, but I like information. And Napoleon wanted a method for, because one of the biggest difficulties of history and war was food. because typically they just go through lands and they steal whatever food was there. They'd take the crops that were in the field or whatever, and they would eat it, and they would take what they could, but it was very difficult back then. So Napoleon offered, like, I don't remember if it was 10,000 francs or something to whoever could come up with a new method of food preservation. And there was a man by the name, I think his name was Nicholas Appert, and he ended up coming up with this idea for canning. So canning isn't something that goes back thousands and thousands of years. The kind of canning we do just goes back to either the late 1700s or might have actually been the very beginning of the 1800s. And so this man, Nicholas Appert, ended up, I think, getting all the money from Napoleon, and that's what we've learned canning from. So they did have different methods of food preservation thousands of years ago. Like they would take things like grape juice. The way that they would store grape juice is they would boil it down till it was just a thick paste. And then they would, it would be concentrate, and then they could put it in a some kind of vat, or they would use wineskins or different things. And then I think they would even try to use smoke to get rid of the air, to a degree anyway. But the dehydration was a way, because dehydration helps preserve things also. But this method, the method of actually heat canning, goes back to late 17, I think more likely the very, very early 1800s. So, unnecessary information, but it's just kind of interesting.
Thank you. So, speaking of canning in Ellen White's day, that was like the thing to do, right? Because by that time it had become vogue. But it seems, and it makes sense, if they're doing it for war, they would use cans, right? Because it'd be hard to go with glass on them. I don't know. But when she comes along, she says glass is preferable to tin because it's healthier. And we know that today. Aluminum cans and all this other stuff. It's the things that they leach are really bad. And so even in her day, she said glass is preferable to cans, or tin cans. Yeah. So that.
Talk a little bit about dehydration.
Dehydration? Yeah, I'm not like a ton of fan. Well, we were talking a little bit about the different ways to preserve, but dehydration historically is the way most people did it, right? Before canning came along, dehydration was it. That's right. People fermented things too. Yeah, we lived in Iceland for a year, and their way of fermenting things was like they take shark and they urinate on it, and then they like. They urinate on the shark, and then they bury it, and then it just like ferments, and to them that's like a delicacy. Yeah, but you have to understand the conditions they are living in. Like, there's no trees. At least I think they just like killed off all the trees, because you come on the island, there's nothing, and how are you going to keep yourself warm? And so they just did all the trees, but they didn't replant. And then the island just like there's nothing on it, right? And so they lived in mounds, literally, in the dirt. That's how you because the temperature in the mounds are always consistent, right? And you think about your water was always cold. Washing, everything, always cold water. So it was a tough situation. So you understand why they use fermentation and things like that. But actually the U.S. going over there during World War II actually helped them, because we met people there that still lived in mounds. And we were there in 2004. But when the U.S. came, they helped them, and they started using geothermal water from the earth, because it comes up in springs, and they use that to warm the homes up. So super efficient. And that just brought them to a whole new, level of living. And you could live in a home then, and it just, things picked up. Anyway, so preserving. That was just a little bit of Iceland. But, oh, and the other thing with the Icelanders, sorry, real quick, before we get into dehydrating. Historically, they would, like, drink blood from their cattle, from their sheep, I mean, you know, and their cattle. And it was just a thing. Like, you just cut the drink right there. I mean, it was a thing. They didn't eat vegetables, you know. And so when Adventists came on the island and started preaching, they told them, you're not supposed to drink blood. The Bible says you don't ingest blood. And so they stopped doing that, the people that they taught to stop doing that. And then all they did was start eating like green beans. And people were like, these guys are crazy. Yeah, they'd eat all other stuff, but all they did was add veggies, like green beans or something like that, and stop drinking the blood. And everybody thought, oh, these guys are nuts. That's how backwards Iceland used to be. But then Adventism became like one of the #1 religions outside of Lutheran church on the island. Not anymore, but it was for a time. And now health is like a big thing in Iceland. I mean, it's like super cool to be healthy in Iceland. And they have longevity. So that's just my little tidbit of Iceland. You can't help but talk about some place that you've given some of your time to, you know. Anyway, so dehydrating historically has been, other than fermentation, the way that you preserve your food. And like I said before, my family, that's pretty much how they preserved their food, was dehydrate. Even their meat, you know, they would cook it down, or they would steam it or smoke it. And what they would do is they would actually cook it down in the kettle with a bunch of salt. Like they just salt it up like crazy, and that's how they preserved their meat. And then what they would do when they reconstituted it, they'd boil that water, and then they'd throw that out because it was super salty. They'd just throw that out until the meat got to a place where they could use it. But other than that, it was like they used the ashes from, you know how we get soaps and stuff? It's all from lye, and lye is from the ashes, right? And so they would use the ashes a lot for all kinds of things. They would preserve their seeds in ashes. They would, so when they process, they would take the ashes and put it in like a kettle, and then have water in there. And then when they would dehydrate their grapes, they would dip it in that water, and then they just let them air dry. You know, that's how they dehydrate it in the hot sun, and they taste so good. I don't know what it is about putting it in that it would just taste so good. But that's just one of their ways of preserving. And then they use ashes. Then they would boil it down more, and that would be like their soap. They use it like Clorox to whiten things. They then throw their clothing in that water and like clean it up. I mean, they used ashes for all kinds of things. And you think about, Jesus says that he is, you know, he died on a tree. He's a tree of life. Trees are a lot to us in society when we rely on that kind of living. And it's interesting how city living has removed us from all those types of imageries, right? Where we don't really understand. Like last week, Chad, we rented an excavator, and by us, it's very sandy, and so the roots go super deep. So you need you're just like digging. I mean, these are huge, huge holes that you're digging to get these roots out. And Chad said, and then during that week, we read Luke 17, and Jesus is talking about if you had the faith of just a little mustard seed, you could tell this mulberry tree, you know, you could pick it up and throw it, and Chad's like, I get it. Like, that's incredible because it takes so much work to pull this tree out. You know, he's like, that was so much work all week pulling these trees out. And God's like, if you had enough faith, you could pull out this tree like this. And he's just like, wow. because our, sandy soil, maybe the Middle East has more sandy soil than it does like here. Where here you guys, we see the trees just like toppled over and the roots are all on the top. They didn't have to go deep for water. Like by us, they have to go deep for water. But just the difference. And so in the Middle East too, they have to go deep for water, so the roots are a lot deeper. And we're like, wow, what an object lesson, like Jesus is telling them here. It just takes a little faith to do something that big, and we're like, wow. Anyway, so drying in the sun was a big thing in the Middle East because it's so hot and there's not much humidity. So in Michigan, it's humid, and the university, or Michigan State University, which is our farming university, is more farming taught there. They came up with this thing where they use a dehydrator, a solar dehydrator. And what you do is you just make it. It's like this box thing. And you have to make it so that there's this long place where it has a window on it, or a glass window. And underneath it is like black metal. Okay? And on the bottom of that, there's a vented place where air can flow up through that, because you're creating heat in that little space where the sun's going through that glass, hitting that black, and you're creating heat. But you have airflow, and that air gets heated up as it goes through there, and then it comes up on this area with layers of your, like your, what do you call, Chad? Trays, thank you. Sorry. So the trays, just like you have in your electric dehydrators, like your Excaliburs and all that, they have all the trays. You do the same thing. You have all these trays, but then you have vents on the side too. And you got to make sure you cover those because you don't want rodents and stuff to get in there. So you put screens. And for your trays, if you make them yourself, you can buy food grade netting to put on top of it. Okay? Instead of just any old netting, you could buy food grade to put on there, and that's how you make your trays. And the air flows and flows and flows, and you dehydrate your food out in the sun, even in humid places. Isn't that cool? So something to look into. So we made one, or Chad and this old man did, but the old man, we were just using materials the old man had in his shop. And he had a window this big. So guess how big this thing is. It is huge, you guys. It's like this big, this part of it over here, and then this part is huge. I mean, it takes up a good portion of our basement. Yeah. And we're like, okay, this is overkill. We would have been better off going and, So we've tried it a couple times, but our problem is where we're at, it's so heavy, it's hard to pull it out on the sand because we just sand everywhere. And when we did it, we overdid it and we filled all of them up. And in the area where we were at, it wasn't the best sunlight all day because you got to watch them. The best we found was while we were still at their place, they had this area with like cement. We put it out there, and behind it was the barn. So now you have a lot of heat in that area. And it just hit there, and it was in no time. And then we put a thermometer in there, too, to see how high the temp was getting. It was incredible. It was just so incredible. Like, in no time, you could dry stuff in there. So just a...
40-some degrees outside, maybe 48,
yeah.
50, and it was like, I don't know, 100 or 110 inside. Because you can dehydrate at 90 degrees, 100 degrees, 120.
Yeah, because think how difficult it would be for us in these areas where it gets cold sooner. But this actually helped you to, as long as you had direct sunlight on it, you could dehydrate in the fall. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So.
Our timer is up, so I've just turned the heat off completely. Now it's just a matter of waiting for everything to cool down, the weight to come off, and then we'll pull the jars out. Is there any more questions that anybody has? Okay. You guys got two choices. One, you can hang around and get your jar after it cools down, or you can come back So, okay, so they have some stuff over display. Do you guys want to cover that online, or you want to just?
Oh, like tell people what's going on? Oh, you mean right now?
Because we can start wrapping it up now.
Oh, okay. Chad, did you want to come up and tell them about the DVDs? Sure. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming out and supporting.
Here, we'll just turn the camera around to you, Chad. That'd be much easier.
About 2/4.
All right. Now, just to let everybody know, these are series that I guess all of these we have recorded. Everything over here, these are documentaries. These are more witnessing tools where they're made. We wanted something years ago that we could share with atheists, agnostics, or people who just, it could be for, it doesn't have to be just for skeptics. But that's what we designed them for. Christians like them also. We made these so that people would be comfortable. It's archaeologists, historians, theologians, scholars sharing our message, but you wouldn't know. They don't say, well, this is, the Adventist message necessarily, but it's just basically looking at these things, seeing the truth of the Bible there. We wanted to give people the truth of Jesus, the truth of the Bible, and so forth. And so we have that's a series there, and over here we have, these are lecture series that Fadia and I do mainly. We do a seminar on the gut-brain connection and overcoming depression, anxiety, obesity, overeating, anger, lust, and lifestyle diseases. We have and that's like 6 messages, I think, 6 messages that are close to an hour apiece. Some are just a bit under that, like the lowest one's 48 minutes. But that's 6 different messages there. We have a series called Overcoming the Media Trap Naturally, which is a mixture of some of the things I talked about on nature, the benefits of nature, but also what overconsumption of media can do to negatively impact the brain. We have a series on overcoming type 2 diabetes. 95% of people can reverse type 2 diabetes by changing their lifestyle in very, very short time period. It's actually incredible how fast often people can do it. And we have a series on overcoming bad habits in general, just any kind of negative habit people may struggle with. This one also is 6 different messages there. And then we have a series called Transform Brain, Transform Life, which talks about the brain and how the brain can be changed, but it also talks about practical things of Bible memorization, storing up scripture, and how that can help the mind. And then we have a series, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. It's called Science of Herbs and Natural Remedies. We showed you just a few of them. This is a five series, probably, I'm guessing roughly about an hour apiece. 5 different messages on different herbs and natural remedies that have been shown head-to-head to be beneficial, often compared to drugs, and shown to be better. So that is mainly it. And just to let you know, in person, if somebody buys them, these series are normally $50 a piece. If somebody buys them in person, they're $40 a piece. If somebody buys the whole set, do you know, Fadia, how much it is if somebody buys the whole set, what it normally would be and what it ends up being now if they bought it?
I think it's like $500, and then it's, or no, I think it becomes like half price would be $225.
Okay, so it'd be like $450 if you bought it all together, but if you buy it here, it's $225. Is that what you said? So $225. So basically, it's half off if you buy it all together. If you buy these, one of them is $15. And then if you buy 2, it's $25. So you end up saving $5 each additional one. But like I said, if you buy everything instead, it ends up being 50% off. So if you have any interest, Fadia will be here, and you can either use cash, check, or credit card, anything. So, all right, that's it. Anything else? Well, shall we close with a prayer? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the time to do something simple and practical, though it's not so simple because there's all these variables. But I pray that anyone who feels impressed to try something like canning, that even though we think, oh man, there's so many variables, I couldn't do all that, Lord, we recognize there's a simple book that tells you exactly what to do, that you don't have to be confused, and it's a safe process if we just try it and just do what the book says. And I thank you that you've given us your good book, the Bible, and we can simply trust in your word and walk by faith in what you call us to do, and we can be eternally safe in your love. We thank you for Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.